We're going to start at running back, and I'm going to talk about now one of the biggest preseason hype darlings that I am absolutely buying into. You got to be careful with these hype trains and which ones count, which ones don't. James Cook is one I am absolutely willing to go all in on. Let's talk about why. The first is all of camp. Every single beat writer, 3 down back. He's the starter far and away. The real battle is just for who's going to be number 2 behind him. You love to see that, and you love the fact that the starters come out for 6 snaps and James Cook is in for all 6, and he carries the ball 4 times of those plays, goes for 20 yards, and to me, the most important part, 3 down back means you're also getting the touchdowns. I've been very worried. We know Josh Allen is there. He's going to vulture some, but what it would have really hurt James Cook is if not only Josh Allen's vulturing, but Dameon Harris, a touchdown scorer in his own right, or even Latavius Murray, rising from the grave to steal touchdowns potentially. That terrified me. But this first game, at least, now it's only one game, it's only one drive. You can't overact, but on 8 yards out from the goal line, they give it to Cook, and he uses his speed to hit the edge, cut right up, and waltz right in the end zone. You love to see it and show that he can be a great back even from within that 10-yard line, uses speed to get through those tight crevices. That smaller stature might not necessarily be a downfall for him. So if he's getting goal line work in addition to the early down work, plus the receiving work we know he's very capable of, I'm all in. And looks like that's going to be the case. And this is when the preseason hype, if it's a player you love the talent, like James Cook for me, I think he's an unbelievable player. Obviously, a good lineage coming from Dalvin Cook. Really liked what I saw last year. A lot of efficiency metrics tell you James Cook was great. Just those early fumbles really put him on the bench. But there's going to be a great opportunity. Singletary ran 312 routes last year. That was the 7th among running backs there, targeted on only 12% of his routes. Now, meanwhile, James Cook ran less than half of those routes, but he was targeted 30% of the time getting open. That was actually second among running backs for routes run target share, behind only Austin Eckler. The guy is a great receiver, and some of these quotes, I mean, James Cook went coast to coast as their unquestioned top running back, displaying excellent pass-catching skills, a good knack for finding lanes between the tackles, separating from Dameon Harris and Latavius Murray. James Cook heavily involved in the pass game, day 6, 12 of 19 attempts for Josh Allen. Of those 12 completions, James Cook had 5 of them. So all these reports heavily involved as a receiver, the only guy that's really playing with the ones right now in one of the best offenses in the league, and maybe even getting some touchdown equity in this share. And Wolf, it's the Bills' backfield. They never have quality running backs. Well, they really have been a timeshare for the most part. But remember, just 2 seasons ago, Devon Singletary had that little brief run from the fantasy playoffs through the real NFL playoffs where he had a stranglehold on the every down roll for the Buffalo Bills. Here were his points: 16.6, running back 7, 18.8, running back 10, 23, running back 5, 25.2, running back 3, 24.4, running back 2, and 15.1, running back 4. The guy was an absolute beast for that stretch run. And when the team does commit, there can be some quality running back production for fantasy coming out of there. So I bumped him up, James Cook, all the way to running back 22 in that quality running back 2 tier, just behind Javonte Williams, just ahead of James Conner and J.K. Dobbins. I am all in on James Cook, lighting it up this year. He's become the player that I did not have much of at all in early best ball drafts, that I am hammering to try to catch up to speed and get a ton of James Cook into my portfolio, as they say. Moving forward, just mentioned Javonte Williams. He is another huge riser of the preseason. Despite not playing quite yet, he's expected to actually play in week 2, which is insane. In fact, in their words, miraculous is the way they're describing this recovery, that he looks like he was never off the field, looking completely healthy. He has not missed a single practice unless the coach has deemed a rest day for him. And even on those days, he said he's been studying film of Alvin Kamara instead of just wasting his time, because he hopes to be used just like him as that pass catcher you can move around. Oh, that should get you excited. Remember, his first game last year, he had 11 targets from Russell Wilson, led the team. The guy can, Javonte Williams, certainly make plays as a receiver and one of the best tackle breakers in the NFL. The Saints routinely were top 5 in running back target share. Even when they didn't have a Kamara, a Reggie Bush, a Darren Sproles, they never dipped below 24% target share or 150 targets to the position under Sean Payton. And when they had a stud like Sproles, Kamara, or Reggie Bush, they would go to the running back 28 to 33% of the time, were the number 1 in the NFL for 3 out of the 7 seasons that closed out Sean Payton. So it was very, very impressive. And that's why Payton's backfields have routinely led the NFL in team expected fantasy points, given how well he uses the position and especially how well he uses them as pass catchers. So great opportunity for an amazing talent that's going, even with all these positive reports, round 7. Remember, this guy was going round 2 last year, and now he's in an even better offense in a better situation. As long as he's healthy, there's no way he doesn't smash that ADP. So Javonte Williams, big riser so far. Another guy that was a little off my radar and now is fully on it, Khalil Herbert. Not that I didn't know the guy. I mean, we saw him play, eyeball test, passes everything. The fact that the Bears are the most run-heavy team in the NFL, that also doesn't hurt. But when I was looking at this situation, I saw Donta Foreman, a player I also really like, big bruiser, probably going to get touchdowns. And then you draft Rashawn Johnson, handpicked by this regime. And you got Justin Fields, who might break the quarterback rushing record. To me, that looked like a 4-headed nightmare, never mind a 3-headed nightmare situation. But Khalil Herbert, all reports are he's been the first back up throughout all of camp, has really been separating himself with his speed. In fact, he himself said, it was a 63-yard rush last year that I got caught at the 6-yard line, and I've been working on that long speed all offseason, make sure I'm breaking runs like Justin Fields, and we just saw it. 56-yard touchdown catch where nobody was going to go get him. In fact, he mentioned there's a fine the team put on it if he gets tackled within the 5-yard line. A little extra motivation there for him. But according to the Upper Hand Fantasy Instagram account, love those guys. Khalil Herbert was second among running backs last year in yards after contact per attempt. Only Tony Pollard was better. Third in missed tackles forced per attempt. Chubb and Stevenson, the only 2 guys ahead of him. And 10% of his attempts went, or 17% rather, of his attempts went for 10-plus yards. That was number 1 in the NFL. I know his sample size, his pie was smaller. So when you break it at the rate he was, it's a little bit easier to be up on the top. But Chubb and Pollard were the next 2 behind him. Look at the company he's keeping in some of these efficiency metrics. A lot of these things tell you the guy's a baller. And right now, it looks like he does have that clear path to being the every down starter. We'll see. It's going to probably get a little bit of a mix, but he's the only one who played alongside Justin Fields across those 2 drives. So we will certainly keep our eyes peeled. He has risen a ton, up to my running back 30 right now. Certainly a flex I could like, and I could see him continuing to rise to running back 2 if these positive preseason reports, performances continue out. Now, Dameon Pierce gets the starter's treatment. So I always like to mention that in week 1. A lot of times the risers are the people that you recognize how much the team values them. Dameon Pierce was one of those. Rashad White was one of those. All the reports, though, from inside camp was what I said why I liked Dameon Pierce to have a monster sophomore campaign. 1, he's thriving in the wide zone scheme. Bobby Slowick has talked about how that is the entire staple of this offense, marrying the run and pass, and it starts up front with this wide zone scheme, and Dameon Pierce has reportedly been a pristine fit for that. You love to see it, but then you also see coming to fruition his improvement as a pass catcher. I'm sure some of you have seen those insane catches in the end zone that this guy is making. He's improved also, probably most importantly, as a pass protector, leaving him very much a possibility to be a true 3-down back. They played Singletary, telling you it's clear this is a running back 1, running back 2 situation. So I still have Dameon Pierce well up there, running back 16, about 3 spots higher than the ECR, among my favorite guys to target in that late 5th, early 6th round range. One of the biggest risers since we last went live is Alvin Kamara, for sure, for many reasons. First, the suspension only ended up being 3 days. There was speculation it might be 6 games, half the year. This is a much better outcome for his fantasy output that he's only getting missed 3 games on the season. Now, the bigger thing, though, that a lot of people, myself included, were worried about is, yeah, sure, he misses some games. He also just didn't look like Alvin Kamara at all last year. Didn't have that burst. Had a great role. Scott Barrett himself tweeting out, one of my favorite accounts out there. It's mind-blowing that Alvin Kamara was that terrible for fantasy after he ranked 12th in carries, 3rd in target share, 2nd in route share. That's impossible to not be a top 7 fantasy points per game. But then he also follows that out and realizes that Alvin Kamara is either the most efficient running back in fantasy or he's been hurt. And last year, he had that rib injury early on, seemed to be gutting it out. Last year was the knee before that. So 2022, 2021 just didn't look like himself, well below fantasy points over expectation. But when he's been healthy, plus 5.4 points over expectation, plus 5.3 over expectation, plus 2.7, he either blows it out of the water or he gets hurt. And right now, he is as healthy as he's ever been. In fact, he says he overhauled his workout regimen because of how shitty he's felt these last 2 seasons. And now he says, I feel springy, I feel fast, I feel explosive. Every year I try to find a way to evolve and get better. And so far, so good. 14 yards on 3 carries, 2 catches, 21 yards, all on that first drive. The only running back to log touches, 5 of them in that 12-play, 80-yard drive, was the centerpiece to the offense and looked significantly faster. Nick Underhill, and this is one of my favorite beat writers because he tells it how it is. He's not trying to pump up clicks or give hype just to pump up his numbers. If somebody looks like crap, he said last year, Alvin Kamara does not look like Kamara. He says Kamara looks all the way back and has even the data to prove it. I guess they're tracking the miles per hour in camp, and he was running speeds faster than he clocked all last year already this year. So great stuff to see. Alvin Kamara looks back in terms of the suspension being less than expected, a return to his explosiveness, and you got to just mention the overall offensive vibes here with Derek Carr look significantly better, and he's definitely a quarterback that loves to dump it off too. I think Kamara is a steal of that round 7-8 price tag he's got. He's up to my running back 27. Without those 3 games, he'd probably be my running back 15. So love Alvin Kamara and what we have coming out of him right now. Zamir White, the late round running back that I am targeting more than any other at this point. Now, reminds me a lot of the James Conner, Le'Veon Bell situation. Josh Jacobs, the reports I'm reading, is a man of pride, and a lot of the insiders are not expecting him back at the beginning of the year and potentially the entire time. Did not work out for Le'Veon Bell. I expect Jacobs to definitely return at some point, but maybe he lets the Raiders lose a few games. Maybe you get a quarter of the season with Zamir White starting. As of right now, he's been named the #1 runner on the depth chart till Jacobs comes back, and by all accounts, he is thriving in camp. Josh McDaniels saying White's running skill and innate ability to see things when he has the ball, find lanes, cutbacks, when he's supposed to bounce, when he's not, he's supposed to go ahead and tuck it. I'd say overall, all of those things are definitely looking better. He's put in a lot of time and effort to be a more complete player, not a guy that just has the ball and can do something with it. Wants to be good in blitz pickup, wants to improve in the passing game, and all those things are part of the young back's progression. You love to hear that. Great praise from his coordinator there, Josh McDaniels. And then you see him. First preseason action, gets absolutely fed like he was Josh Jacobs himself. 13 carries, 41 yards. Man, not amazing yards per clip, but you love to see that work. He pounds in a touchdown, 1 yard burst right there. You love to see that. And then you just learn a little bit about this guy. One, he's called Zeus. Anybody nicknamed Zeus, I perk up a little bit. Then you learn, how did he earn this nickname, Zeus? Apparently, he doesn't work out like a normal, just typical football workout. He works out on the farm that his family grows on, quote unquote, tossing bales of hay and chopping wood, running hills with feed bags, and just all over the farm, moving everything, animals, just like a classic, kind of Rocky. It reminds me of this guy doing this training regimen that's just so old school. Something about it I just love. And who knows how it pans out. The guy is a last couple round pick. I think it's awesome for keeper leagues because I don't think there's any way that Josh Jacobs is back. And it reminds me, like I said, of Connor, because what if Jacobs does just hold out? You get this freakish talent, 4'4", 40, 10'8" broad jump, one of the best in history for a running back. And yeah, he didn't have any huge college seasons while he shared that backfield with James Cook. But this is definitely a guy that has insane athletic ability, that has a clear-cut role in front of him if Jacobs holds out. #1 running back that you're getting around 15, 16, and certainly in keeper leagues as well could be a huge value should Jacobs not return next year. So definitely starring Zamir White on my draft cheat sheet. I'm going to rip through a couple rookies here because the preseason is a great time to see these first-year players and how they're looking, how they're fitting in with their offenses. Are they going to carve out roles for themselves? So let's talk about a few rookie running backs that really impressed me. Tank Bigsby. Yeah, ETN got all the carries with Trevor Lawrence to start. We did get 1 for Tank Bigsby. But then with the 2s, the guy was absolutely dominant. First of all, he's got the clear-cut running back 2 role on lock, and I think he's going to absolutely be a handcuff with benefits. 34-yard run, bounces it outside, breaks a couple tackles, boom, finishes with 9 carries, 54 yards, and is just cementing, by all accounts in training camp, the guy that's first up after ETN, the guy that could be the goal line back. Now, he did get 2 carries on the goal line, did not convert him in his first preseason game, but apparently that's been a real strength in training camp of him. And we know that Travis Etienne, 23 carries inside the 10 last year, only 4 touchdowns. This is definitely a role that Bigsby could end up taking from him. And I mean, there's some of these quotes out there from the running back coach sitting there watching the film. And this is the one guy I kept saying, writing down notes. We need him. We need him. We need him. My goodness. Whoa, this running back right here. That's the one. We got the one. I put a double star. The team loves this kid. Doug Peterson praising his pass catching ability. And if anything happens to Etienne, we know he missed his entire rookie year, played all the games last year. So I do expect a nice quality season. They're saying 1,600 yards, Doug Peterson, for Travis Etienne on the ground. A little bit overblown, in my opinion. It's typically been a committee under Doug Peterson. I think Tank Bigsby could get that invaluable goal line role. Plus, if anything did happen to Etienne, you'd be looking at a top 10 weekly running back potentially inside an offense I think is going to explode. So I love that he had a very strong debut. Tajae Spears for the Titans also looking phenomenal. Hassan Haskins did start the game, goes 2 carries for 5 yards. Tajae Spears, 6 carries for 32. He was a standout at all OTAs, and especially as a pass catcher. All in camp, they're saying we're going to give him as much as he can handle. Now, I doubt that. You have Derrick Henry. So as long as Henry's there, I don't think Spears is going to be overly usable. But he could carve himself out a nice little niche role in the passing game. But even without that, ultimate handcuff upside, it seems to me he is very clearly ahead of Haskins as a player, and it's only a matter of time until he is clearly ahead of him on the depth chart. So definitely file away Spears for that late round handcuff. There's a lot of upside there. Now, Devon Achane, an interesting game for the guy. A few pluses to note, a couple minuses to note. The first good thing, very nice impact as a receiver, which is where we expect him to definitely do his most work. Achane, 4 catches, 41 yards, breaking tackles, that little jitterbug that you like to see that we all expected. But 10 carries for 25 yards and a lot of just tackled at the first contact. He ran tough. He did get some up the gut tough yards, but he often went down pretty easy there. And probably the more concern is he played behind Myles Gaskin and Sullivan Ahmed. And now I don't expect that to last. I think Achane is a significant playmaking upgrade above either of those guys and probably above Jeff Wilson and Raheem Mostert if and when he gets cooking. The fact that they're playing him behind those two right now, you don't like to see it. So assuming, I don't know if Dalvin Cook went to the Jets, if that's what we were talking about earlier, as long as he's gone, it is a big rise for Jeff Wilson and Raheem Mostert, as well as Devon Achane. But to me, it was a little bit of a concerning preseason effort, given that he was behind a couple nobodies, and that he just didn't look amazing. He didn't really pop off the page, even though he was facing like 4th stringers at the time. You have to just note it. Zach Charbonnet, 4 carries, 14 yards, catches both targets for 14 yards as well. And all training camps, you keep hearing Pete Carroll, that Charbonnet kid, oh, I love him. He's in competition for the running back 1 here, and we're going to definitely make sure he's getting his work on Sundays and already this week. Looked good, didn't he? Looked physical. Guys on the sidelines going crazy for him. He had a great start with us. I'm down on Kenneth Walker because I really like Charbonnet, and it seems like Pete Carroll really, really likes him too. Looked okay. Looked fair. It wasn't an overly efficient night, but definitely significant, very physical performance, quality player there. I enjoyed what I saw. And then the last rookie running back I want to touch upon is Deuce Vaughn. That tiny little jitterbug. My God, 8 carries, 50 yards, spinning, juking, all over the place, ankle breaking. It was fun, very fun to watch this kid. He also pounded one in from a few yards out. He just hides behind his blockers. It's very Darren Sproles-esque, but a little thinner than Darren Sproles, and just zips up there. So an interesting performance, and now we know Zeke is not going to be back there. We'll talk about Ramondre Stevenson shortly. Maybe Vaughn does become that running back too. We will find out. But based on preseason performance, we did have Tyson Chandler. Wide open depth chart behind Alexander Madison. And a lot of the training camp buzz was Chandler's not looking great and nobody's really stepping up right now. Put that one to rest. 11 carries, 41 yards, 4 catches, 29 yards. Coach saying he really jumped out. His ability to see it in live game action, his vision, his burst, his finish, it all showed up, said Kevin O'Connell. Really jumped out. Anytime he had the ball in his hands, he was very rarely tackled by the first defender. And then you have some added context too. Warren Sharp, a great follow there. Adding more context to what Ty Chandler did last night. Faced loaded boxes on 91% of his runs. 55% of his runs, he was contacted at or behind the line of scrimmage, and he still averaged 3.0 yards after contact, as also catching all of his targets. An impressive performance. Indeed, a great handcuff to target late. Ty Chandler, very solid debut for him. Now, a very important role in fantasy is the running back 2 role for the Bengals. We saw last year, Samaje Perine. He ran 214 routes in this role, 24 running back in that. 38.8% of the snaps, not bad in that type of offense. You don't need a ton of snaps, so nearly 40%, solid. 51 targets, that was the 20th among running backs. 23 red zone touches, top 40 among running backs. He made 3 starts. That's the real value here, handcuff value for the running backs. 30 points, 19.3, and 21.5. If something happens to Mixon this year, whoever's that running back 2 is going to be stepping into a very valuable role. Right now, we got a battle. Dameon Williams has been hurt. He was expected to be that guy. He's week to week, though. So is it going to be Chase Brown? Is it going to be Chris Evans? Evans draws the start, has a quality 33-yard run, goes 7 for 49 on the night, was definitely the more impressive runner. But we did see Chase Brown struggle on the ground, 8 for 12, not good at all. But as a receiver, 3 catches, 33 yards, solid in pass protection. That's the Samaje Perine role. So I still prefer Brown myself, but Chris Evans definitely becomes someone you have to have on your radar. It becomes a situation you need to watch. You're hoping one of them really, truly separates, and it's not an ultimate committee if Mixon ever goes down. But something to track. I have him at running back 58, 59 as those last round stabs that are very intriguing. One of the most important things to figure out this offseason for fantasy football will be this Eagles backfield. Who knows if there will ever be clarity, but we're getting some interesting reports that you have to at least note, specifically for Kenny Gainwell, who is rising huge up the big board. First thing, he doesn't play in the game at all. Him and Boston Scott rest. Now, I do imagine that's a little bit more. We already know what we have in these guys. Let's get the new guys going, get them their feet wet behind our offensive line within our scheme. I'm not looking too much into this, like Gainwell's clearly the starter because he didn't play. I don't buy that. But I do buy the fact that he has looked significantly better than Rashad Penny in camp so far. I'll just read you a few lines here. Gainwell increasingly been the team's early down back when he's getting touches as a runner. He looks like he is in a feature back spot. I thought that would be Penny would go, but Gainwell has undoubtedly had the stronger camp and gotten the vast maturity of first-team carries, excelled there throughout the most recent practice. He's made use in short yardage, goal to goal in the red zone, scored 3 touchdowns on Wednesday's practice in that situation, even though it's not the live tackling and we get all that. Just still, he's the first man up. I did think that would be Penny, showing great burst, hitting the holes. The Eagles offensive line paving him, and he's tripping chunk gang, sizable, nice juke moves. As of right now, this is the beat writer's projection for the depth chart. Gainwell, Swift, Boston Scott, Penny all the way down at 4th. Whether that plays out, and we've definitely seen questionable Eagles beat writing before. So I'm not going to go overly nuts here. It's not like Gainwell's a top 15 running back suddenly for me, but he's back to running back 40. He's in my top 120 or so players at this point. And really, Rashad Penny's the one that has to come down a significant amount here. He didn't look great in his first debut. 9 carries, 34 yards. It was okay. We know he's got upside. Just a couple seasons ago, he's the number 2 running back, or number 1 running back. I had a Singletary we were just talking about. Number 1 guy ahead of him was Rashad Penny down that stretch. He has that burst that very few guys have in the league when he can get down into the open field. But maybe he doesn't have it anymore after all these injuries. He didn't look great. I had been targeting Penny, so this hurts for me to say. I had a lot more Penny on my early best ball teams than I do Kenneth Gainwell, but I'm definitely going to be switching those up, especially given Gainwell goes 4 rounds later than him. DeAndre Swift, the lead pass-catching back coordinator, it sounds like he's actually claimed that 2-minute drill that a lot of people have been worried about. So I still have him the highest fantasy-wise, running back 29, but then I did bump up Gainwell to my running back 40, and Penny came crashing down to my running back 43. We'll see how this all shakes out. Certainly something to keep monitoring, but at the minimum, right now, Kenny Gainwell seems like the guy to target because he's the cheapest, and he might be the number 1 guy in this backfield. You don't need any extra reason to draft Tony Pollard, but Zeke is officially out of here, which you'll love to hear because Tony Pollard averaged 28 fantasy points per game in all his starts without Zeke. All reports are he has looked like Tony Pollard, without doubt, fully back from that surgery. You love to see it. In the games without Zeke, 48 carries, 3 games. This is 3 games. 48 carries, 16 a game. 315 yards and 6 touchdowns, in addition to another 10 catches and 92 yards receiving. And now he's only got Deuce Vaughn added as competition, this tiny little 5'6" guy. Come on. I know he looked impressive. I just talked about him, but this is Tony Pollard's backfield. Brian Schottenheimer, bad for the overall offense, the new coordinator. I love Kellen Moore. Definitely can score more points. But Schottenheimer, if he does one thing, it is run the ball and run it pretty well. His last 10 years calling plays, 4 of them were top 3 in rush attempts. 3 of them were also top 4 in rushing yards, including the number 1 rushing offense twice. There's only 1 year he was above 17th in pass attempts. So this is going to be a run-heavier scheme. It's going to be more work for Tony Pollard. Wheels up. He reminds me a lot. Only made this comp a couple times here. He reminds me a lot of Jamal Charles, where he was the smaller back, the speedster, quality receiver. He's not quite the receiver of Josh. I'm not going to go that way. But finally gets the keys turned over to him, and people wonder, is he really, truly a featured back? I think Pollard absolutely is. We've seen him thrive when he's been given that role before, and I could see a similar arc to Jamal Charles here for the remainder of his career. We will find out. A running back, one of the only running backs, though, I have ahead of him. Pollard's my running back. Oh, no, I'm checking my rankings now, baby. I got to flip these things. Pollard or Nick Chubb? I don't know which one I want more. I love them both, and both are similarly benefiting from the removal of people around them. No Kareem Hunt here for Nick Chubb, and we've talked about this a million times on the podcast. 18 points per game without Hunt, 15.8 with him in the lineup. He goes from almost no passing game involvement to 3 targets per game without Kareem Hunt. And the big thing is, though, we knew this is gone, and why we bring this up yet again, Wolf, we've heard you talk about this a million times. Well, Jerome Ford was the lead guy to take over the Kareem Hunt role, and he has a hammy injury where he's out week to week now. And ever since then, Nick Chubb has been the first man up for the third down role. Stefanski's praised him. Stump Mitchell, the running back coach, has said that he's insane as a receiver. It's just not a matter of he can do it. We just haven't used him that way, but he certainly can be used that way. It's going to be the bell cow Chubb role. Remember last year, he was the running back one until Deshaun Watson came in. So I am huge on Nick Chubb in this new role. And they go from Tony Pollard to Nick Chubb to Kyren Williams. What a great follow-up. But I think he is absolutely one of the best last-round sleepers you can have, Kyren Williams, the Rams running back 2. All the reports are he's been excelling as both a runner and especially as a pass catcher, to the point he doesn't even play in week 1 of the preseason. Yes, Akers is the quote-unquote featured back, but the clear-cut guy behind him has been Kyren Williams, and he's also been praised for his pass protection. They like Williams, quote-unquote, a bit more as a pass protector than they do Akers. So while Akers is the nominal starter, Williams could carve out a role and then be the guy they lean on in the ground game if something were to happen to Akers. He's coming off just 2 seasons removed from that Achilles tear. He had injuries as a rookie as well. He doesn't have the cleanest bill of health, Cam Akers. So we're talking about Kyren Williams, no one else there behind him. He was a true featured back there at Notre Dame. He could absolutely be a handcuff with benefits that no one's drafting. He's absolutely free right now. And after Zamir White, Cordarrelle Patterson, I think Kyren Williams is my next closest running back target. 78 receptions, 675 yards, and 4 touchdowns at Notre Dame. Can absolutely be a pass catcher. And even Matthew Stafford praising the guy, catching the ball out of that backfield, big plays with him. Even when he gets it handed, he rips it. It's all good. Everything is coming out praise-wise for Kyren Williams here, an ultimate running back 2 target at the end of your draft. A running back 2 behind Cam Akers, handcuff with benefits, baby. All righty, moving into some followers. One of them did get updated today. That's J.K. Dobbins. There's a lot of frustration, and is he ever going to show up? And the coach seeming all pissed off and fed up. You could hear it in his voice how pissed off Harbaugh was. But he did return J.K. Dobbins today. Harbaugh saying he's 100% healthy. We're thrilled to have him back. Kind of a mini hold-in, quote-unquote. It's over at this point. So at least we know Dobbins is back. He's a ridiculous talent. 800 yards rushing and 9 touchdowns as a rookie. We haven't really gotten a nice quality full season since then. A lot of injuries. But in this Todd Monken scheme, all the reports are they're throwing to the running back more often. It's a much more explosive overall offense. I think Dobbins right back now that we know he's playing and he's here. Right back in there. 5.9 yard per carry career. Guy's a stud. Great receiver too. Out of the backfield. I'm excited to see him get used there. It is worth noting, though, just in his absence, Justice Hill did start at running back ahead of Gus Edwards. Gus Edwards did play. Hill looked better, though. 37-yard run, 3 for 48 on the night. He's always been a pretty solid pass catcher. So if you're looking for the handcuff, looking for the running back too, it probably is Gus. But just wanted to note that Justice Hill did come in first for the preseason action and did look really good. He's been getting a lot of praise as well. One of the biggest followers of camp so far, though, it's none other than Jonathan Taylor, last year's #1 consensus overall pick, not practicing, demanding a trade. He's got an ankle injury. It looks like he's walking around like an old man. A back injury might be potentially added into there. And I think there's some holdout risk, given that he says he will not play for Jim Irsay. I don't know if he's going to dig his heels in. It definitely seems like one of those years it could be a big stand for a lot of running backs in the league. We will find out. I'm worried, though. Not drafting him in the first 2 rounds. If he falls to mid-round 3 or so, okay, the upside might be too much to pass up because you have the chance. What if he gets straight to the Chiefs? What if he goes to one of these insane offenses and then rips off 20 touchdowns? It could absolutely happen. But given that he's with the Colts, could hold out, and then you have Anthony Richardson, already a potential goal line vulture there. I don't love it for Jonathan Taylor. Certainly not a guy. I haven't been drafting him at all anyways, and this is not going to move the needle that I do go get him unless he's fallen to the end of round 3, maybe the mid-round 3. We'll go there. A couple just other quick injuries. We noted Ken Walker has not been practicing because of his groin. He is expected to be activated this week, though. Not something to necessarily worry about, but Zach Charbonnet is something that you should have on your radar. We also have Damien Harris injuring his knee, also getting outplayed by Latavius Murray. Anyways, I had been targeting Harris because I thought he'd be the touchdown guy, but James Cook has clearly separated from everybody else here, and now it's to the point that Latavius Murray might be the number 2 running back, so do not draft on my list at this point Damien Harris. I had a lot of Jerome Ford in early drafts. I love any running back 2 in that Kevin Stefanski scheme. We've seen even Dearness Johnson go nuts when he had the open role. I still like Ford, but definitely with that hammy injury, he's now succeeding that number 2 role, the pass catching back. He's giving that up to Chubb. So he's ultimately just a handcuff, not a handcuff with benefits, and not somebody I'm going nuts to go get. Last injury to note, Kendre Miller suffered a knee injury week 1 of the preseason. Not expected to miss any extensive time. Expected to probably be back for week 1. But this is the time he needs to be carving out that role and proving the team can trust him. It does suck. It's poor timing on his end. And then we did just mention Josh Jacobs. Who knows what's going to happen here? He's still holding out, not planning to come this entire preseason. So Zamir White continues to ride on up the board. Going to take a quick breath and check what we got for comments. We definitely have some classics here. Love to see it. Hey, Prof, what's good? I love that you have helped me. Hey, I love to hear that. I'm glad the videos are helping you out, man. I'm glad you could catch a live show here with us. Brees Hall, Zeke to Jets. So that must be, I'm guessing you mean Dalvin Cook, no to. Zeke to the Pats. So now we know Brees Hall, also a faller as well. I did want to talk about, though, Ramondre Stevenson. I think I missed that one. I put a I ran out of the banner space. So let's talk real quick about Ramondre Stevenson. I'm just going to type it in a banner here. Ramondre Stevenson. So Brees off to react to on the fly, but Ramondre Stevenson, I at least prepared a couple notes on. Zeke is done. I mean, he's horrible. I'm a Pats fan. This does not excite me at all that we got Zeke. Yeah, he can cap off some drives, so I do think he could carve himself out a goal line role, potentially score a lot of those 1-yard plunges. I think he's going to do a good job of that. But that wasn't why you were drafting Ramondre Stevenson last year. Last year, you only had 6 touchdowns, still finished as the running back 10 in fantasy. So he was never going to be a TD guy, and it wasn't going to hurt him anyways. The big thing is, does he maintain that receiving role? 89 targets last year, 3rd among running backs, 69 catches, 4th among running backs. Was a staple in the receiving game all of camp so far, getting rest days from Bill Belichick. I imagine that this is definitely still Ramondre's role. So I have not been drafting Ramondre because I knew something of this nature. We knew the Pats were entertaining Dalvin Cook and Lenny Fournette and Zeke. This was bound to happen. I didn't love him when he was going late 2nd, early 3rd around Derrick Henry even. Come on, give me the king. But if he starts to fall to mid-late 3rd now, I still think Ramondre's role is relatively unchanged. He probably wasn't going to be the touchdown guy anyways. To me, this is just Zeke as a worse Damien Harris. I see this being Stevenson, what we had last year. And so if his price continues to drop, I will definitely gobble it up. But I did have him right now. I had him low, much lower than the ECR, around 33. So he's fallen a couple spots to 36 overall. So I hadn't gotten any of them. I wonder what will happen and shake out here afterwards. I'd probably still won't have much Stevenson unless you get a significant discount here. Alrighty. What is up, you fantasy wolf? Thanks so much for tuning in. If you haven't already, share your thoughts in the comments, check out some more videos, and join the newest Wolfpack by subscribing below.